Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome, welcome to the Daily Antidote of Song. I believe that it's day 883. I'm sure someone is going to confirm or correct that idea. Where's Carolyn? Let's see. Yes, 883. Thank you, Carolyn. This is the Daily Antidote of Song 8, day 883. Let's welcome all the folks on Facebook Live. Hello, hello. It's so good to be here. I'm Elise Witt coming into you from Pine Lake, Georgia. And I'm super, super excited to have Kristina Olsen coming in from Canada today. Before I welcome her, though, let's welcome everyone in the room. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to Erin, our tech person. She's making us all look good and sound good. We're so happy to be here with her. And welcome to Jo, who is on Facebook Live today because she has a terrible case of food poisoning. We're so sad about that, but she's here with us. And welcome to Arlene in Berkeley, Luton, Victoria, Kathy on Arapahoe and Cheyenne Land, Susan G and Bonnie in Boise and Nancy in California. Welcome to Sheila in Florida and Annette and Jenny in Suffolk, the UK. Aloysius, it's always good to see you in Massachusetts, and Becky and Pauline in Newcastle, UK. Hello, Dan in Vienna, that's Virginia, and Delhi and Bronwyn in Victoria. Carolyn in Boise, Amanda and Miles in Michigan. Hello, Shari in New Hampshire, and Kathleen in Albuquerque, and Terry and Ruth in Birmingham, that's in the UK, not in Alabama. Hello, Nicola. I still need to know how to pronounce your name because I think some people say Nicola, Nicola. Not sure, put it in the chat and I'll know. Thank you so much. Okay, let's see, who do we have here? Hello, Susan in Seattle and Anne in Maryland, Michelle and Steve in Silver Spring. Hello, Tim and Antonina in Santa Cruz. Hello, Ralph in Victoria and Sarah in Texas. Hello, Nancy and your beautiful Irish cow. Deborah is dancing in her car in Kentucky somewhere. Hello, Phil in Totnes. Hello to Violetta from Poland. And Tim, and that doesn't look like Tim, but we don't know. Hello, and Dan in Vienna, Kate still in Florida, LMG and Joni and Carol in Connecticut and Bob. Welcome everyone to the Daily Antidote of Song. Hello, hello. It's so good to be here with you today on a Monday morning. This is Labor Day, y'all. Labor Day started to be celebrated in the late 19th century, officially to celebrate the work of laborers. If you look a little closer, it was brought on by two really big strikes, the American Railroad Workers, a Pullman Palace Car Company and the American Railroad Workers. And so it took a while, but there is this celebration. I say that the struggle is still going on because I happen to live in Georgia, which is a right to work state, which means you have the right to not be in a union. And there are many states like that. So I am a proud member of Local 1000 of the American Federation of Musicians, and many of the folks that sing to you here are also members of that local union. Which is independent musicians. Anyway, happy Labor Day to everyone. I hope that you are not laboring today and are resting and enjoying the beautiful music that we are about to have. I am very, very excited to welcome Kristina Olsen. I first met Kristina through our mutual friend, Freda Epstein, and I am a huge fan, a huge fan, because Kristina is not only an amazing singer and songwriter, she is a world traveler and storyteller, and we'll find out a little bit more about her, but let's get to the music. So Kristina, coming to us from Vancouver, I believe, in Canada. Welcome, welcome to the Daily Antidote of Song. So excited to have you here.
Thank you, Elise. What a joy to be here. And I'm so impressed with all the incredible work you do. I just have to say that. I'm quite a fan of yours as well. So This is a song I wrote for my best buddy. She and I were the Thelma and Louise of the backpacking set. We'd take any excuse we could get to go out in the woods, and she taught me to be in wilderness more. And she was also an artist, and she taught me to look more. I always heard everything in the world, and she taught me to see. We would, when we were very young, in our young 20s, and we lived together in Venice, California, we would knit. We were like little old ladies already. We'd knit on a Saturday night, and we were very poor, and we bought wooden knitting needles because they were so appealing to us, and it was kind of a big splash out for us. And we were sitting there, and I remember I was thinking about how beautiful the wood sounded hitting the other needle. It was so much prettier than the aluminum sound. And just as I was thinking that, she said, "Look how beautiful the yarn is over the top of the wood." And I was like, okay, she's teaching me to use my eyes a little more. Anyway, I wrote this song for her the first time I went backpacking, and alone, because I always hiked with her. It felt like she was with me the whole time. And when I came off the trail, I wrote this as a late goodbye to her because she'd been taken in an automobile wreck. And there is a chorus, and it goes, and I hope you'll sing it with me. Of course, that's what we're doing. And I cried, and I cried, you a waterfall. I cried, you a storm. I cried, you an ocean, salty and warm. I'll do that again. And I cried, you a waterfall. I cried, you a storm. I cried, you an ocean, salty and warm. And if you want, you can stay on that part, or if you feel like adding a little harmony, I've put it on my phone in the modern way. And I cried, cried you a waterfall. So that part is, cried you a waterfall. Let's try it with the... And I cried you a waterfall. I cried you a storm. I cried you an ocean, salty and warm. So I'll sing the main part. You could try that, or just sing the main part with me again. I cried. I'll sing the main part right. Olsen, jump tracks. And I cried you a waterfall. I cried you a storm. I cried you an ocean, salty and warm. And there's a higher part if you want. Cry. And I usually put that part on the last repeat of Cry You Waterfall, but let's just put it on all of them, see how it goes. Why not? Here we go. And I cried you a waterfall. I cried you a storm. I cried you an ocean, salty. Something like that. So pick your part. I'll sing the song. And when I first started touring to New England, it was kind of freaky. Like, people would sing along on songs they'd never heard of. That part, it was like spontaneous songwriting as far as I could tell. Like, they could sing a line that they'd never heard in their life. It amazed me. So feel free to sing on the whole song. I think you have that gift because you do this all the time, right? I did a gig last night. I'm still waking my voice up, and it's morning out here. You took my hand in your hand like a child and explained to me we're only here a while. You told me that the stars were hungry for your spark. You said, don't weep for what you can't undo. Here's the chorus. And I cried you a waterfall. I cried you a storm. I cried you an ocean, salty and warm. The time we've had can never be enough. Why can't I ever act a little tough? And I'm waving as you go. My heart is breaking slow. You just smile and say, don't mourn for those you love. But I cried you a waterfall. I cried you a storm. I cried you an ocean, salty and warm. The night is crisp. I'm standing here alone, with a sky so big it swallowed me up whole. I'm in a magnitude of stars, like lightning bugs in jars, and like a fool I'm looking there for you. And I cried you a waterfall. I cried you a storm. I cried you an ocean, salty and warm. And I cried you a waterfall. I cried you a storm. I cried you an ocean, salty and warm. You took my hand in your hand like a child. Thank you so much for singing. Look at your beautiful faces all over the world.
I think we need a very large breath, inhale and exhale after that amazing song. Thank you so much. Christina, we were talking before we opened the room about the book that you were reading called Breath. And I was wondering if you might say a little something about that because I think it's perfect for the experience we just had singing that song with you.
You know, I'm a compulsive reader and I love the library so much. And the most amazing thing is I do read books in on e-form, and a lot of people are like, no, they must be real books with real pages. But for a traveler, it's a miracle. I remember bouncing down a country road in Australia, a dirt road, and at that moment, I was able to get a library book on my phone out of the Bellingham Public Library. I have to say, I'm very greedy, and I have 6 library cards from different countries, and it's a little naughty, but I have many addresses, so it's incredible. You know, like you can only get the certain book at the certain library. It's amazing. So I was reading this book, Breath, that was recommended to me by a couple friends, and I think it's a very profound book. It talks about healing, the healing power of breath, and how we think of oxygen as being the healing power, and there's this kind of radical idea that no, it's actually the power of carbon dioxide, and how if you people who get in a panic, they do that short breathing, you know, what they're doing is they're packing their lungs full of oxygen, and the oxygen's running around the blood, in the blood, but it can't get off because it takes the carbon dioxide to let the oxygen do a gas exchange. So that's kind of, I think, where panic attacks come from. It's too much oxygen. And I had a doctor tell me that. I thought, my doctor's cuckoo. Oxygen's good. I know that. I know we need oxygen. Come on. So I finally read this whole book and I did find it fascinating, but I thought, as a singer, I thought the upshot is if you breathe out more than you breathe in, you're in the good spot. And I thought, singers know that? We already know that. You can save yourself 300 pages, really. I mean, we know that. It's an incredible, we get high. And in fact, I do sing-alongs. I'm not a choir person at all. I like to be, but I'm not. I do sing-alongs in my show because I know it gives my audience the same high that I'm getting on stage. And people come off stage, they're like, "Blah, blah, blah, blah," they're so happy. And the audience, if they haven't been singing, they're kind of like tired.
Well, you say you're not a choir leader. It depends on what, our definition of choir
Definition.
is. To me, I mean, we just call it community singing, which obviously you are an amazing leader of community singing. Yeah, you've gotten people singing on many continents. Um, I am a big fan of yours, also your audio book. It is an amazing collection of stories and songs. The title is They Paid Us in Tub Time. Do you want to tell us a bit about the audiobook? Because I recommend this to absolutely everyone. You all need to get this book. It is so cool.
You're such a sweetie, Elise. It the book. It was funny. I've read a couple books where there was a attending CD that went with the book, and one of them was called "An Equal Music" by Vikram Seth. I thought it was a phenomenal book about Bach, discovered music, and I thought it was all fiction. And the way he writes about music in all the books I've read, he's like his ability to describe music in words is exquisite. So I'm reading this book, I'm on tour, and I'm reading this book, and he keeps talking about this incredible music, and I'm like, I wish I could hear that. The last bloody page, it says, by the way, there's a CD that goes with the book. I'm like, why didn't you tell me on the first page? So I had to reread the book with a CD, but I'm never sitting by a stereo. I can't push play. Like I'm on a bus somewhere. There's no way. So when the capability to have music in an enhanced ebook came along, I got so excited and I thought, well, I'm going to write a book just so I can stick songs in it. That seems like a fun idea. So I did, but I didn't know it was at the time, this was early in the enhanced ebook time, that Apple and Kindle were duking it out, and Apple was blocking Kindle from the power to do that. So it turned out the book I wrote was only for people who had Apple gadgets, and I didn't want that. I wanted it to be for anyone who had a thing that reads books. Anyway, so I was really upset because that was going to be my thing, is you could just read on your gadget and then push play and hear it, right? That was wonderful. So then I did an audiobook as a way to amend that, where I read all the chapters. So it is an audiobook. It's just got a bunch of, as you said, loose stories about traveling and about my life, and with songs that connected. And the title was one of my early gigs where it was during the 70s when hot tubs were really big, right? And so I was trying to get gigs, and I got a gig playing at Hot Tub Fever because people were actually using it to screw. Like it wasn't just to relax. They was like, Friday night, baby, let's go. Instead of buying a hotel, you could go to Hot Tub Fever and for an hour get a room and do your thing and go out. And so the problem was the lobby was getting all backed up. There was just people spilling out into the streets, and they needed some entertainment because people were taking longer than an hour to do what they were trying to do in there. So my job was 9 to like 2 in the morning, sit there and play music to people who were like making out in the lobby. They were not interested in me, and they didn't pay me in cash. Local 1000, I think, would have something to say about that. They paid me in tub time. And there's only so much relaxation you can get. Like in a 5-hour night of playing music, I'd get 5 hours of tub time. And so I was trading it for haircuts and anything I could do. Anyhow, that's the title.
I love it. Well, I think it's different than any other book or audio book that I've ever read in that it's kind of like going to a concert with you, because every time you are about to sing a song, you tell an incredible story about it. And that's really what the book is. I mean, and the book just leads you from story to song to story to song. And yeah, I mean, it I'm a fan, as you can see. Um, you are also a world traveler, as you've mentioned, and you've lived a lot of places. I know that you're from Venice Beach, California, and you still kind of are, right? but you're currently living in Canada and you lived in Australia for a while. Um,
It's just where what happens is like Australia. I was working in the States, kind of in the 80s and the 90s. I was touring a lot in the States, and it was when the singer-songwriter wave, well, when I started, it was so underground. Like no one wanted to hear us. It was like a person with a guitar. Oh no, that's horrible. So pretty much we went underground. We went to church basements and house concerts, which is now hip again, right? Isn't that funny? And it was a beautiful time in my life because it wasn't hip. It meant that the only people who came to the concerts truly loved that music. And you had these true listeners and true fans. And then suddenly a few people hit the charts. And so overnight it became, you got to listen to a singer songwriter. And for a little while it was really fun because there was that rise and everyone coming out. And I was actually getting into clubs and becoming known and getting press and all the things that you're supposed to want. And then suddenly it was kind of like overnight there were too many singer songwriters. Like people who'd been a Zydeco band yesterday because it was hip were suddenly changing to being a singer songwriter. And if you get people who do it because they think they can make money rather than because they love it, it kind of as soon as the audience sees three boring singer songwriters, then they're like, oh, all singer songwriters are terrible. So just at the time that the wave was crashing here in the States, I got my first tour in Australia and it was on the upswing. So I find that you catch either the bottom, the bottom feeders are very rich when it's not hip or when it's on the upswing. So I was working so much in Australia, it was hard. The work permits were an issue, and I'd have to leave when my work permit would end, and leave the country and re-enter on the next work permit. There's no land borders. That meant I had to fly to another country to wait a week or something, and it's expensive for me, and not that rich. So I ended up getting a dear friend made it possible. I worked teaching at a conservatorium of music, so I could have a full-time job and be a resident. So I became a resident there. Then I was teaching at a swing camp in Canada and met a guy who I fancied and married him. And then that messed up Australia because I had a residency in Australia, but my Canadian husband couldn't live in Australia. It was the paperwork of getting him there. So now, ironically, he's in Venice. He's got a dual citizenship, and I'm trying to put in enough time in Canada to get dual citizenship here so that I can come and go as I like. I'm greedy for libraries and citizenships, obviously.
wow.
Yeah, that's my greediness.
Wow. Let's see. I wanted to ask you one other thing, but I can't think right now what it was. So let me see if there's anything in the chat. There's a lot of, oh, there's some, Carolyn says there's a comedy film called Hot Tub Time Machine.
I haven't heard that. I'll check that out. Thank you.
We'll have to look at that. So anybody have any questions you want to jump
Venice,
into the chat?
Venice Beach, California. Venice Beach, California.
Yes. Someone asked if.
Non niente di dichiarare. No, I don't speak Italian.
Oh, are they sister cities though? Venice, Italy, and Venice
I
Beach.
think they're sisters. They should be, but no,
They
I don't.
should.
But Venice Beach was fashioned after Venice, Italy, by a real renegade guy who said we need more culture, and so it was all the streets were originally canals, and the street I live on is a walk street like Venice, Italy. So
Wow.
the whole system was canals, but they had mosquitoes and sewage problems, so they filled it all in and made streets. And there was a big public outcry: how can you have Venice without canals? So they added a little canal section, but yeah. So.
I do remember, I have one more question before we sing the song again, and that was you've done a lot of collaborating. You have wonderful musicians that you've collaborated with over the years and made albums with. Do you want to tell us who you're collaborating with these days, or what some of your?
Well, this is kind of a wild story. This very incredibly wild guitar was built for me just this year by a Canadian, and because I'm trying to get a Canadian citizenship, he cut out the maple leaf on the penny and embedded in the guitar. Anyway, this man who I've known for decades, I've known for maybe 40 years at music camps. He's a gypsy jazz guitarist and an incredible monster player, but he builds insane guitars. And because I was up here in Canada, someone said, you should see Michael Dunn. And it turned out I was house sitting a few blocks from where he lived. So I dropped by and we did a jam. And And I said at the end, you know, Michael, I've always loved your guitars. I've always really loved and admired your guitars. And he goes, well, why don't you own one? And I said, I didn't know that was an option. So he built me this guitar this year, and we just did our first gig last night, and it was so that's something very different. And you know, you don't think of a flamenco gypsy jazz player and a singer-songwriter, but he's about 80 years old now, and he's just an amazing musician. So that's the most current thing I'm doing. I just got a degree from Berkeley Music, my first degree in my 60s, and so I'm working on an album of new guitar instrumentals, the things that I worked on in guitar school. So
Wow.
that's the next thing that's coming out probably in about a year and a half. So that's new.
Wow. Wow.
But I've had a long time, wonderful two musicians I must mention. A cellist I've worked with for over 20 years in Australia, who's amazing, beyond amazing, and also Nina Gerber, who's a California guitarist, one of my all-time favorite guitarists in the world, and we've done a lot of albums together. So I'm so wealthy in musicians to get to work with. I'm so happy.
Beautiful. Well, I'm sure that they're really happy to work with you as well. Let's sing the song again. It's so, so beautiful. Let's all take a small breath in and a large breath out.
We want muscular diaphragms, you know what I mean? No flaccid, wimpy diaphragms that kind of don't push very hard. You took my hand in your hand like a child and explained to me we're only here a while. You told me that the stars were hungry for your spark. You said, don't weep for what you can't undo. And I cried you a waterfall. I cried you a storm. I cried you an ocean, salty and warm. The time we've had can never be enough. Why can't I ever act a little tough? I'm waving as you go. My heart is breaking slow. You just smile and say, don't mourn for those you love. But I cried you a waterfall. I cried you a storm. I cried you an ocean, salty and warm. The night is crisp. I'm standing here alone with a sky so big it swallowed me up whole. There's a magnitude of stars like lightning bugs in jars, and like a fool I'm looking there for you. And I cried you a waterfall. I cried you a storm. I cried you an ocean, salty and warm. And I cried you a waterfall. I cried you a storm. I cried you an ocean, salty and warm. You took my hand in your hand
Thank you so much, Christina. So, so.
What a beautiful thing you're doing here. I'm so glad you invited me in.
Daily Antidote of Song is an amazing thing. Can you believe 883 days?
I can believe it. Once you get it started, you're going to have a hard time stopping this ball rolling, I'd say.
Well,
It's a
I'm
lot of work for you. A lot of work for you.
You are most welcome to return and perhaps even host some of the wonderful musicians that you know and bring in. That's how I got involved. I was presenting a song, and then next thing I knew I got roped in, and here I am, and I just can't quit because it's so, so wonderful. So let's all wave goodbye to Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us on Facebook Live. Thank you, Joe, for being here with us, even though your stomach is probably not feeling fantastic. We hope that that song helped a little bit.